Welcome to Historical Accounts, and today we are going to be looking at Brigadier General Robin Olds, a man who is a triple ace between World War II and Vietnam. He is also the only P-38, P-51 ace in history. But let's go ahead and look at the history of this triple ace from World War II and Vietnam. Now, Olds was actually born in Hawaii in 1922 and was raised by his father after his mother died when he was 4 years old. Now, Robin Olds' father was General Robert Olds, who was actually the aide to one of my personal favorite heroes of history, General Billy Mitchell, but he was actually a World War I pilot. And it is actually the father, Robert Olds, who got Robin Olds into flying, taking him up his first flight at the age of 8. And by the age of 12, Olds decided he was going to go to West Point. Now, while he was at West Point, he actually was a pretty decent football player and spent a lot of his time playing football. And under other circumstances, he might have spent the rest of his time in college playing football, being a normal college student. However, Olds' time at West Point was right at the beginning of World War II. And because of his previous flying experience, he actually ended up being part of a program to fast-track those cadets at West Point that were going to basically be pilots. And he was put in this specialized program to actually graduate a year early so they could get him out onto the battlefield much sooner. And Olds actually finished both his primary flight training and his time at West Point at the summer of 1943, when he would transition to the Army as a pilot. And from there, he'd be sent from California to Arizona to begin his training on the twin-engine aircraft, the P-38 Lightning. Olds was viewed as extremely proficient in the P-38, and because of that, he was deployed with his unit to England in 1944. Olds would immediately be put to work actually attacking ground targets in preparation for a future invasion in June of 1944, which would later be known as D-Day. He took down his first confirmed air-to-air target in August of 1944, taking down a German aircraft, a Focke-Wulf 190. But his reputation and skill as a pilot really came on the night of August 23, 1944. While on an escort mission to Wismar, Olds encountered 40 to 50 Messerschmitt Bf-109s and decided to take his unit and go after them. Olds and his wingmen actually dropped their external fuel tanks in order to go after this group of 109s, and inadvertently he never turned on his internal fuel tanks, and so he actually ran out of fuel while pursuing them and actually continued to attack them while dead stick, meaning that his engines had died and he still attacked and managed to actually shoot down a Bf-109 in the process. He then restarted his engines on internal fuel and then shot down another aircraft. He would then get another 2 takedowns over the next couple of months, guaranteeing him his ace status with a P-38. However, by the end of September, his unit, the 479th, actually transitioned away from the P-38 to the P-51 instead. After learning to adjust to a single-engine fighter aircraft with a near accident, Olds immediately began to show that he was proficient in this aircraft just as well, shooting down his first German aircraft on October 6 of 1944. And in that time, from October 6, when he got his first confirmed kill, to November 9th of 1944, just barely a month later, he managed to rack up an additional 5 more takedowns. His final victory of World War II came in April of 1945, and it actually had really unusual circumstances. He was escorting a group of B-24s over Germany, and this is the first time he ever encounters what's known as the Sankorkommando Elbe, which this was actually towards the end of the war. The Germans were desperate, and they actually produced a group of pilots whose whole job it was just to ram their aircraft into American bombers in order to take them down. And in the process of this, he actually encounters a German Me-262, which is one of the first jet fighter aircraft of World War II, and he actually managed to damage it, and he pursued a Bf-109 that was part of the group and shot it down, getting his last victory of World War II. And by the end of World War II, his official ace victories were for the P-38 5 victories and for the P-51 8 victories. And in all honesty, he could have ended his career there and gone down as a legend between those aircraft. And he would actually spend the next couple of decades doing all kinds of things. He had a short stint as an assistant coach at West Point. He learned to fly different kinds of aircraft at the early age of jet aircraft. such as the P-80 Shooting Star, the Gloucester Meteor, the F-86 Sabre, a favorite of mine. He tended not to stay in officer staff positions for very long, as he didn't get along with a lot of brass, as he tended to see them as more thinking about when their next promotion was coming, as opposed to a warrior mentality. However, one staff position he had was extremely crucial to the future of aviation, and he was actually on staff duty at the Pentagon during the late 50s into the early 1960s, and he actually helped with the development of getting the funding for the classified project that would become the SR-71 Blackbird. He would eventually return to tactical units with the 81st Tactical Fighter Wing flying the F-101 Voodoo. However, he would end up in the F-4 Phantom, and this is the aircraft he would end up getting his third ace status with. In September of '66, he's given command of the 8th Tactical Fighter Wing, and he's given command of this because the unit had not been aggressive. They weren't doing their duty to provide combat air patrols or anything like that. So they brought in this guy who was a World War II ace to hopefully bolster the unit and get it to where it needed to be. Olds' more aggressive training style put them on the radar for a new operation known as Operation Bolo, in which Olds' unit would help lead a series of traps against the Vietnamese's MiG force. Because of Olds and his tactics with Operation Bolo, his unit would end up claiming 7 MiG-21s destroyed, which was almost half of the Vietnamese Air Force's 16 that they had. On May 20th, he took down a pair of MiG-17s, and what would be his last takedown, bringing him up to 4 total victories in Vietnam. He had the opportunity to go for a 5th, but he found out if he did it, he would have been sent back stateside basically for publicity purposes. Olds would spend the remainder of Vietnam providing support for low-level bombing strikes, with his final combat mission on September 23, 1967. Olds would spend the remainder of his career as the Commandant of the Air Force temporarily, the Director of Aerospace Safety in the early 70s before he finally retired in 1973. He would spend the next 30 years enjoying life, working on the city's planning commission in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, skiing whenever he could, and just enjoying life until his death of 2007 from prostate cancer. But there you have it, a quick look at Brigadier General Robin Olds, a man who was a triple ace, the only P-38, P-51 combo ace, a man who basically didn't have to come back but still came back to another war and aced again, and was a rather interesting character. And additionally, we got to thank him for his work in getting the funding for the SR-71. But that's it for today. I thank you for joining me. I look forward to talking to you on the next time.